And Mr. Smith can have a seat. Thank you. This is the case of the people of the state of Michigan versus Kevin Smith. It's case number 15-010161-01-FC. Jury trial in progress. Appearances, please.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. May it please the court. Robert Morantz, the prosecutor.
And Ashley Chiffon on behalf of the people.
Jerry Cahill on behalf of the people as well.
And good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm Attorney John McWilliams, P-17-565, on behalf of the defendant in this case, Mr. Kevin Smith, who's seated at the defense counsel table, ready to proceed.
Okay. Good afternoon to everyone, and good afternoon, Mr. Smith.
Good afternoon.
I received a note. As you know, my name is Judge Talon. I'm next door. And Judge Kenny is unable to be here today, and so I'm going to stand in for him to take the verdict. I received a note that says the jury has come to a decision that they want to, what about letters of service? So I imagine we've got all that covered. So I do not know what the verdict is. And I just want everyone to know that I know this has been, from what I understand, that this has been an emotional trial for everyone. And the jury has deliberated, and they worked very hard. And regardless of what their decision is, when they render their verdict, we will all sit quietly, whether we agree or disagree with the verdict, regardless of how we feel about the verdict, and just sit quietly and respect the jury's decision. Obviously, anyone is free to discuss the case at a later time, but here we'll just sit quietly. I trust that everyone understands that. That'll work, Mr. McWilliams?
Exactly.
All right. Mr. Smith, that'll work?
Right.
Okay, all right. And Mr. Smith may remain seated during the verdict. Come and have him seated. And we'll have after the jury comes in, we'll have him, Roberta will take the verdict. At one point, she's going to have them give the verdict form to you, give it to me, and then I'll give it back to you to give to the jury. Okay. All right. Let's rise for the jury.
You may be seated.
Will the parties stipulate that all the jurors are present and seated in their assigned seats?
People stipulate, Your Honor.
Exactly, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
As you noticed, I'm not Judge Kenny. Judge Kenny is unable to be here this afternoon, so I am substituting for him this afternoon. I received a note that jury has come to a decision. What about letters of service? So, all right. So, Roberta, you'll take the verdict from the jury.
Members of the jury, have you agreed upon a verdict?
Yes.
Yes.
Will the person who is the foreperson please state?
Yes.
Please state.
Stand. I thought she said state.
Let the record reflect that the juror in seat number 8 is the foreperson.
Oh, that's right. My jury room next door is the reverse, so count differently next door. Thank you.
Could you pass the verdict form over to the deputy, please? Mr. Foreperson, reading from the signed verdict form, reading the count number, the charge, and the result, how do you find the defendant, Kevin Smith, as to count 1?
Guilty.
Read the entire thing.
Oh, read it, okay. Conspiracy to commit armed robbery. Guilty.
As to count 2?
Robbery armed. Complainant Terrence Berg, not guilty.
As to count 3?
Assault with intent to commit murder. Complainant Terrence Berg, not guilty.
As to count 4?
Weapons, firearm possession by felon, guilty.
As to count 5?
Weapons, felony, firearm, guilty.
Members of the jury, will you please stand and raise your right hand? Listen to your verdict as it is recorded by the court. You say upon your oath that you find the defendant, Kevin Smith, as to count 1, conspiracy to commit robbery, armed, guilty. So say you, Mr. Foreperson?
Yes.
So say you, members of the jury.
Yes.
As to count 2, robbery, armed, complainant Terrence Berg, you find not guilty. So say you, Mr. Foreperson?
Yes.
So say you, members of the jury.
Yes.
As to count 3, assault with intent to murder, complainant Terrence Berg, not guilty. So say you, Mr. Foreperson?
Yes.
So say you, members of the jury.
Yes.
As to count 4, weapons, firearms, possession by felon, guilty. So say you, Mr. Foreperson?
Yes.
So say you, members of the jury.
Yes.
As to count 5, weapons, felony, firearm, guilty. So say you, Mr. Foreperson?
Yes.
So say you, members of the jury.
Yes.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Which people agree?
Juror in seat number 1, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 2, was that and is that your verdict? Yes. Juror in seat number 4, was that and is that your verdict? Yes. Juror in seat number 5, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 6, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 7, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 8, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 9, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 11, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 12, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 13, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 14, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the jury has been polled. Would you pass the verdict form back to the deputies again, please? Here you go, the verdict. The court accepts the verdict of the jury. You are now discharged from further service on this case. I want to thank you. I'm sure Judge Kenny said it a number of times, particularly during jury selection, and I thank you on his behalf for the sacrifices that you've made to be here, because without the sacrifices that you've made to serve our system of justice would not be possible. So once again, you're discharged from service on this jury. You are free to discuss the case with anyone at all if you so choose. I'm going to ask if you'll step inside the jury room, and I'll be inside in just a couple of minutes to speak with you and give you your letters of service.
All right, adjourned.
You may be seated. All right, what is Mr. Smith's work on?
He's on parole, Judge. The bond is not relevant, but I would ask that he be remanded
Okay.
given the nature of the conviction.
All right, you wish to say anything on that regard, Mr. McWilliams?
No, Your Honor, I acknowledge those to be the facts and the circumstances, and the usual form and practice will be in place.
Okay, the court will make the bond a remand. And do we have a sentencing date?
June 8th.
June 8th of 2016. Is that good for the parties?
I'm checking my calendar at the moment, Your Honor.
It's fine with people, Your Honor.
It's fine with the defense, Your Honor.
Okay. Is there anything else for the record? Mr. McWilliams, Mr. Moran?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor, not at this time.
All right, and do they have any exhibits that I need to?
They do in the jury room.
Okay, we'll make sure that we get those. Are they all the people's exhibits?
They are.
All right, we'll make arrangements to have those returned. Okay, Mr. Smith, thank you very much. You may go with the deputies. And we are in recess.
I'll be back to talk to each other.
Thank you.
Good job, Ron. Nice working with you. Nice working with Jerry. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ashley. Counsel, I have one witness from robbery. Nice working with you. Thank
To your wife, tell your wife I said, yeah, just tell your wife that I'll see you. Jerry's texting.